It's got holes and spaces. And then you let light come through it, and it's made of glass. What will happen to an image of something behind it? He did all that. And this is the actual data, and this is his model of the distortion of the Earth that you would get through his glass grid, and they're almost identical. In other words, he was able to figure out the geometric structure of the domes. And this is one of my favorites. We found this from an Apollo 16 shot on the far side of the moon, just coming around with Earthrise. Here's now a color view taken, a year and a half after Apollo 10, more or less. Here's a normal view, here's enhanced view. If you look really carefully, you'll see there's something here between the Earth and the surface. If we zoom in, you can see that there's a very interesting light haze around the Earth and just between the Earth and the moon. There's nothing over here, there's nothing over here. It's right here, and it's because the glass is refracting the image of the Earth like lenses, like a million lenses. And you're seeing little tiny microscopic versions of the Earth being bent in the optically active refractive medium right between the Earth and the lunar surface. And the angle doesn't work off to the side, it only works directly above and below because of the vertical nature of the glass grid. Again, this data is available at NSSDC. You can order these frames either as prints, or you can go online. You can get online scanned versions from other centers. You can duplicate everything we have shown you. So at this point now, we're going to... Yes?
Why do you show them? Don't let it out here. We're not showing the Apollo 15 shot, but you have that one in there?
Which Apollo 15 shot?
One as they are Apollo 15 as they're leaving the moon.
I don't have it in. No. Because I didn't show it to the press because it's dismissible in other ways, and I only wanted rock solid data. During the Q&A, we can do that. Okay, it's 9:30. We're going to turn the lights on one more time so you have a bit of a break. You've had about an hour sitting here. It's in Apollo 17. But now we have the other leakers, and some of them are located literally halfway around the world from Houston, and they have been sending us some stunning stuff separately of Dr. Johnston. This is the Apollo 17 mission. It landed at a place called Taurus Littrow, not too far away from 19.5 degrees. Oh, isn't that interesting? It landed just north of this feature, which is called South Massive. If you look carefully, you'll see there's a gridded structure. And in the book, we describe how Keith Laney's model and mine is that this is one of several arcologies on the moon underneath these domes. I mean, the original geometry and the architecture must have been incredibly interesting and complex and, frankly, dazzling. And part of the fun is going to be for the film is when we bring in some computer CGI folks from here in Hollywood who have basically told me that they'll work on anything I want when I give them the go-ahead. And what we're going to try to do is do a logical scientific reconstruction of what this stuff looked like when it was new. And that's going to be fun. So, Apollo 17 landed right about there, which is north of South Massive, and the astronauts tooled around in a little go-kart, the so-called lunar rover, and they went over here, they went over here, they went over here, and they all came back, and then they came home, lifted off the moon, etc., etc. They visited a crater right about here, which we'll get to in a while, a crater called Shorty Crater. This is the typical NASA PR prints that you have seen for the last 40 years of the moon, of Apollo 17. Notice the pitch black lunar sky. Here's the lunar go-kart, the lunar rover. Here's one of the astronauts in placing instruments. This is a nice panorama. Here's the shadow of the astronaut taking the picture without looking really, really closely. I think this is Cernan, I think this is Schmidt, but you got to go back to the Lunar Science, Lunar Surface Journal and actually look at the transcripts and correlate pictures with who's what. The commander, Cernan, was wearing red stripes on his spacesuit, so that's one of the cues. Okay? Now, in the last few months, last year, 2 years, as there's been this new accent on the moon, NASA has revealed and released some remarkable information publicly to kind of, I mean, it almost looks like they're trying to get our attention. And I was watching TV one night as I'm waiting to go on the air, you know, with George. Remember, I kind of work nights. I'm the science advisor to Coast and Nuri, and he and I are sending IMs back and forth, and when certain guests bring up certain points, I send him some questions, you know, or I send him data that will amplify some of what they've said, or I'll send him website links for confirmation of things they've said or things that I think that should be brought into the conversation. So I'm sitting there and I'm working. I'm actively working, and I'm watching my monitor, my TV monitors, some of the time watching NASA TV, just on the background. You don't need sound to watch NASA, you just watch the pictures, right? And one night I'm watching this TV and I'm working away on the computer and I'm watching the IM screen and I'm listening to Coast, and I noticed this amazing shot from Apollo 17 television of an astronaut loping across the scene, and the lunar TV camera that was sending remote images to Earth back in 1972 pans across this background, and it shows this thing in the foreground lit by sunlight that I had never seen. In all the years that I've been watching Apollo stuff and, you know, working with CBS and then left the program and, you know, became a NASA consultant and then left that, I had never seen this particular shot. And I'm looking, and as they zoom in, I notice that there's this amazing regular geometric structure on what's supposed to be a lunar hill. And as I finally got access to the hard copy Hasselblad film from one of our sources through NSSDC, I realized there was this absolutely stunning, regular, cubical, geometric, room-like structure right there on the lunar surface in photography taken by Apollo 17. And in all these years that I've been following that mission and know the historical parts of it and what they did and the mission profile and how far they drove and who was on the mission and the experiments and all that, I had never seen this particular picture. And it instantly reminded me of one of Bucky Fuller's geodesic, geometric, artificial structures, a Bucky Fuller dome. So then I had, here's an interior of this huge dome structure invented by Buckminster Fuller, which is why it's called a Bucky Fuller dome, which, by the way, is quintessentially tetrahedral. It works because it's equilateral triangles and the force structure is distributed, and that's why it's stronger than steel, and that's why Bucky was a genius. And the question is, where did he get the idea from? Who was Bucky Fuller really? Was he remembering? I mean, this really, there's no trivial aspects to discovering that everything we think we've known about the space program is not right, that huge amounts have been hidden,